Hey there, it's Shauna. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for June 18th. So this week is about rites of passage, and I've used that title for this week because this week feels as though there's something intense that we're working through this week. It's kind of like I see it as this intense process, and then there's some type of breakthrough, but it has a very sacred and special feeling to it. So I'm excited to share the astrology of this week with you, and then I have 3 tips for you to have an amazing week. So first thing that's happening this week is we have the first quarter moon in Virgo, and this is happening on Wednesday. It's in the very last degree of Virgo. It's at 29 degrees of Virgo, so really interesting there. That tells me that we're working more with the mature energy of Virgo, with like the fully developed energy of Virgo, and which is all about really leaning into self-care, really leaning into doing things one step at a time. Virgo is all about ritual, and it's about doing things one step at a time and on a consistent basis so that everything runs along smoothly and hums along smoothly. The first quarter moon, this is the point in the lunar cycle where there is either a confrontation or a call to action. It could also be where you need to make a compromise, or where you need to not make a compromise and stand firm on your ground. And that really depends on what's happening in your life. Like, where's there potential for something that needs to be modified, where a compromise needs to be made for the long-term benefit, or where is it that there's something where you've been working on and it's really important that there are certain standards that you stick to. Virgo is also very much about the ideal and standards, and so those kinds of things may come up, especially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where it's like, okay, what is it that you're comfortable with sacrificing or not sacrificing? So that's that. And then the next day we have the solstice. So the solstice is the point when the sun moves into the tropical sign of Cancer. And so this marks the first day of summer in the northern hemisphere and the first day of winter in the southern hemisphere. So it's either summer or winter solstice, depending on where you are in the world. And the solstice is really cool because the word solstice actually means, the original translation is that the sun sits still. And this is because the time in the solstice is when you watch the sun set on the horizon, it appears like the sun is staying in the same place for the few days around the solstice. So throughout the year, it's going to move along the horizon, and the sun is going to set in like a variety of different ways as the year goes on. But for these few days, it kind of looks like it's setting in the same spot. So what does that mean? So we look at everything symbolically in astrology. This is really, the other interesting thing is that it marks a point of maximum capacity of the light and the dark. So in the northern hemisphere, we have the longest day of summer on the solstice. And then in the southern hemisphere, it's the longest night. And so from this point forward, things start to change. In the northern hemisphere, the days start to get shorter. Some southern hemisphere the nights start to get shorter. And so it's like this this feeling of giving your all and moving as far as you can move in a certain direction, and then needing to pivot and move in the opposite direction. And this is all about our light, the light and the dark. And so a good contemplation for you, like, what energy are you running in your life right now? Are you really leaning into the light energy of clearing and illumination? And light and solar energy is more related to intellect and to understanding and to moving forward. It's more yang. Versus the night energy is more related to lunar consciousness. It's related to feminine energy, to yin energy. It is introspective, and it's more about going inside and intuition versus the intellect. So So a really beautiful day to meditate on those kinds of things. And then lastly, so this energy is building through the whole week. We will have Mercury opposite Pluto. So this is happening exact on Saturday, but I'm really feeling like this is going to be building the whole entire week. And this is kind of an intense transit because Mercury is our mind, it's our thought process. And then Pluto is fucking intense. Pluto wants to know the truth. Pluto wants to help you reveal how it is that you really feel about something. And Pluto is about integrity. Pluto is about being authentic. And not authentic in the way that looks nice on Instagram or Facebook or on TV or whatever. It's like the really real authentic, like the parts of you, the feelings inside of you, the thoughts inside of you that may feel uncomfortable to share. And so it's especially important this week to have an outlet for that, to have an outlet for intense feelings and intense thoughts to come up, because one manifestation of this is you could feel a lot of it, you could feel very intensely and then just bottle it up if you don't have a place to vent or to purge or to release that energy. So that's something, and I'll have more information in the tips for you, but that's something to think about. So this is going to be particularly intense for people who have a strong Pluto or for people who are already having a Pluto transit. So, you know, if you know that about your chart, if you know that about yourself, I would pay extra attention to it. It's interesting because before, earlier in the week, Mercury will actually make a harmonious aspect, a trine to Jupiter and Neptune. And so this is kind of like maybe there's a dream and a hope and something that's an ideal, and then what is the reality of that? What is the true authentic nature of what it is that you're doing? And also, like, I mean, this could just quite frankly be around how it is that you express yourself with Mercury being involved. So that's that. So I have 3 tips for you. Tip number 1 is to nurture your body. And I say that this week because we do have that intensity of Pluto. And so whenever we have outer planets involved, especially like Pluto, it's really important to take care of your physical body so that your mind and your emotions have a safe container to be. This also really embraces the Virgo energy with the first quarter moon in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is very much about health and routine and the rituals that we do every day. Like, what is your daily ritual for getting ready in the morning? How well do you take care of yourself? And this isn't necessarily to like pile on things for you to do or to feel like you should be doing more, but it's more about like, what does your body need? What does your body need today? What does your body need this hour? Do you, you know, basic stuff like, do you need water? Do you need some tea? Do you need to rest your feet? Is it better for you to go out and do something active, or is it better for you to do something more solitary or more restful? Those kinds of things. So that's tip number 1, to nurture your body. Tip number 2 is to stay curious about intense feelings. And so this is very much Pluto Mercury. So I say this because I notice when this aspect happens, it can bring up a lot of intense and dramatic feelings, anything from anger to resentment to shame to frustration. And I'm not saying that you're going to feel those things, but that's a possibility. Whatever it is, Pluto invokes intensity. And so I want you to stay curious about what it is that you're feeling instead of judging it or thinking that you shouldn't feel that way or trying to make it go away. It's like the feelings that are coming up, those are coming up for a reason, and those are already there inside of you. Pluto's just reflecting that now is a beautiful time to get acquainted with those. And so that's tip number 2, to stay curious about intense feelings. Tip number 3 is to process deep thoughts and maybe even document them. So I say this because, again, we have the Mercury, which is all about the mind and thought process, and it can be very therapeutic to process things in a written form or talking to someone. So you know the best way for you to process things. For some people that's journaling, for some people that is making a recording on the phone and just like talking and getting it out and either trashing it or listening to it later. For some people it's artwork, for some people it's talking to a friend, for some people it is doing other kind of therapeutic work. I don't know, like other kind of ceremonial work. Anything that has like a ritual element could be very healing this week as well, because we do have that Virgo energy. But it definitely feels important to process what it is that you're feeling and thinking. And when I say process, it doesn't have to be fancy. Again, it's just like write it down, sit with it, and let it be there and let it come out. And the really cool thing about Pluto is that it also has this cathartic kind of effect, so that there's like this intensity, kind of like a volcano or an orgasm, when it's like the intensity builds and then when it releases, you're like, I feel great. So the way to move through the Pluto process is to allow for that building and then to allow for the release as well. I think that so often we judge our thoughts and our feelings, and that actually keeps everything tamped down. So that is what I have to say about that. And then I will pull a card for us, a tarot card, to seal up the energy for this week. And so this is from the Radiant Rider-Waite deck. And it's not necessarily guidance, it's more just the vibe of the week for you to tune into. I dropped a bunch of cards. That's okay. Okay. This is a decisive card. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I pulled the Seven of Pentacles. See if you can, there we go. So you know what's funny is I pulled this card for the most recent episode of Neo Feminine TV. I feel like this happens a lot where I'll pull a similar card from a recent episode of Neo Feminine TV. Isn't that funny? So the Seven of Pentacles, it's the man, the guy that is looking down on all of these pentacle things. And this card represents when someone is looking down at the labor, the work that they've done. They're like reevaluating and reassessing, like, shit, I've done all of this stuff, and now what do I do? And there's like, this is like, there's still some work to be done. And so it's this time of like, what do you want to do with the progress that you've made so far? And it is this time of like deciding to continue to move forward, or deciding to make little tweaks or little changes. And yeah, definitely a time of evaluation. I feel like this really tunes into the Virgo, first quarter moon in Virgo. Like, what is it that you're putting your energy towards, and do you need to make any fine-tuning adjustments to that? So, good card. So that's all. This is your horoscope for the week. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please share it with a friend who you think would also appreciate it. And if you want to get more of me, you can find me also on Neo Feminine TV. It's a live weekly broadcast that I do on all different kinds of topics around helping people who are sensitive souls live life in the world. And a lot of it incorporates astrology, but also some other things that are non-astrological too that I'm just really interested in talking about. So that's every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'll have a link below so that you can find the next broadcast, and you can also find it on iTunes or on my website, neofemininetv.fireside.fm. If you want to connect with me more, you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under Neo Feminine Astrology. And then, of course, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one for astrological coaching or counseling, you can find that as well on neofemininetv.fireside.com. I'm wishing you an amazing week, and I'll talk to you soon. Namaste.